The Antikythera mechanism is a 2,000-year-old computer. Exactly 115 years ago today, divers looking for sponges discovered the wreck of a 2,000-year-old vessel off the Greek island, Antikythera. Scattered among the wreck's treasures, beautiful vases and pots, jewelry, a bronze statue of an ancient philosopher, was the most peculiar thing. A series of breast gears and dials mounted in a case the size of a mantle clock. Archaeologists dubbed the instrument the Antikythera mechanism. The genius and mystery of this piece of ancient Greek technology, arguably the world's first computer, is why Google is highlighting it today in a Google Doodle. What is the Antikythera mechanism? At first glance, the piece of brass found near the wreck looks like something you might find in a junkyard, or hanging on the wall of a maritime-themed dive bar. What remains of the mechanism is a set of rusted breast gears sandwiched into a rotting wooden box. But if you look into the machine, you see evidence of at least 24 gears, laid neatly on top of one another, calibrated with the precision of a master-crafted Swiss watch. This was a level of technology that archaeologists would usually date to the 16th century, not well before the 1st. But a mystery remained. What was this contraption used for? The world's first mechanical computer. To archaeologists, it was immediately apparent that the mechanism was some sort of clock, calendar, or calculating device. But they had no idea what it was for. For decades, they debated. Was the Antikythera a toy model of the planets, or perhaps it was an early astrolabe, a device to calculate latitude? In 1959, Princeton science historian Derek J. DeSola-Price provided the most thorough scientific analysis of the contraption to date. After a careful study of the gears, he deduced that the mechanism was used to predict the position of the planets and stars in the sky depending on the calendar month. A main gear would move to represent the calendar year, and would, in turn, move many separate smaller gears to represent the motions of the planets, sun, and moon. So you could set the main gear to the calendar date and get approximations for what those celestial objects would be in the sky on that date, and Price declared in the pages of Scientific American that it was a computer. The mechanism is like a great astronomical clock, or like a modern analog computer which uses mechanical parts to save tedious calculation. It was a computer in the sense that you, as a user, could input a few simple variables and it would yield a flurry of complicated mathematical calculations. Today the programming of computers is written in digital code, series of ones and zeros. This ancient clock had its code written into the mathematical ratios of its gears. All the user had to do was enter the main date on one gear, and through a series of subsequent gear turns, the mechanism could calculate things like the angle of the sun crossing the sky. For some reference, mechanical calculators, which used gear ratios to add and subtract, didn't arrive in Europe until the 1600s. Scientists have learned even more about how the Antikythera mechanism works. Since Price's assessment, modern X-ray and 3D mapping technology have allowed scientists to peer deeper into the remains of the mechanism and learn even more of its secrets. In the 2000s, researchers revealed text, a kind of instruction manual inscribed on parts of the mechanism that had never been seen before. The text, written in tiny typeface but legible ancient Greek, helped them complete the puzzle of what the machine did and how it was operated. In all, it's astounding. The mechanism had several dials and clock faces, each which served a different function for measuring movements of the sun, moon, stars, and planets, but they were all operated by one main crank, little stone or glass orbs that would have moved across the machine's face to show the motion of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter in the night sky, the position of the sun and moon, relative to the 12 constellations of the zodiac, another dial forecasting solar and lunar eclipses, and, oddly, predictions about their color. Researchers guess that different colored eclipses were considered omens of the future. The ancient Greeks were a little superstitious. A solar calendar, charting the 365 days of the year. A lunar calendar, counting a 19-year lunar cycle. A tiny pearl-sized ball that rotated to show you the phase of the moon. And this is pretty neat, another dial of the mechanism that counted down the days to regularly scheduled sporting events around the Greek Isles, like the Olympics. Again, the mechanics of this are absurdly complicated. A 2006 Nature paper plotted out a schematic of the mechanics that connect all the gears. It looks like this. Not simple. Researchers are still not sure who, exactly, used it? Did scientists build it to aid their calculations? Or was it a type of a teaching tool, to show students the math that held the cosmos together? Was it unique, or are there more similar devices yet to be discovered? Its assembly remains another mystery. How the ancient Greeks accomplished this feat is unknown to this day. Whatever it was used for and however it was built, we know this: its discovery changed our understanding of human history, and reminds us that flashes of genius are possible in every human age. Nothing like this instrument is preserved elsewhere. Nothing comparable to it is known from any ancient scientific text or literary allusion, Price wrote in 1959. It is a bit frightening to know that just before the fall of their great civilization, the ancient Greeks had come so close to our age, not only in their thought, but also in their scientific technology. Check out a modern reconstruction of the mechanism in the video after.
This is a reconstruction of a 2,000-year-old computer. The original battered pieces were found in a shipwreck more than a century ago, and Michael Wright, a museum curator from London, spent decades studying them in order to work out what the device was for. He built this model in his home workshop, with techniques similar to those that the Greeks might have used.
This is my model of the Antikythera mechanism. The mechanism is a box full of gear wheels, driving indications on dials, one at the front and one at the back, which we'll look at in a moment. And it's all driven by working from the hand knob here. On the front dial, we've got two scales. The inner ring is the zodiac divided into degrees. The outer ring is an annual calendar scale, 365 days.
The device is a machine for predicting the motions of the heavens. When you turn the handle on the side, pointers move around the front dial, showing the movements of the sun, moon and the 5 planets that the Greeks knew. The fastest pointer here is for the moon, going around the sky once a month, while the white and black ball shows its changing phase. Inside, a sophisticated setup of wheels riding around on other wheels models the varying motions of the planets, according to the Greeks' astronomical theories. As the side handle turns, the planet pointers sometimes move forwards and sometimes backwards. Meanwhile, the sun and moon pointers vary in speed, just as the actual sun and moon do when seen from Earth.
Now we'll look at the back. We've got two sets of two displays together here. The upper one is basically a calendar. The spiral scale is divided into months, each of which is named, and this is a cycle of months, 235 months, which fit into 19 years. These are months measured by the moon.
An extendable pointer with a little needle on the end tracks the spiral groove, just like the stylus on a record player. When it gets to the end, you can lift the pointer up to reset it. One of the little dials just inside the spiral shows the dates of the ancient Greek games, including the Olympics on a 4-year cycle, while the other tracks a much longer 76-year cycle.
The lower display is giving the times at which there may be eclipses. Again, it's graduated into months, and the markings are just in those months in which we expect there to be an eclipse either of the moon or of the sun or of both. The thing about eclipses is that they happen according to a pattern which repeats after 223 months. So here we have a 4-turn spiral scale with 223 month divisions.
This dial is one of the most exciting parts of the mechanism. It was used to predict eclipses of the sun and moon according to a repeating 18-year cycle. The Greeks probably got the data from ancient Babylonian astronomer priests who had been observing eclipses for centuries. Inside the mechanism, you can see the gear trains that drive the pointers on the back dial. This shot also reveals that this model was made of recycled metal plates, just like the original would have been. This is the first model of the Antikythera mechanism to incorporate all of its known features. Thanks to Michael Wright, it's working again for the first time in 2,000 years.